keep my language clean then. Good. That's good. Hi, Hal.
Hi.
Okay, Hal, we're good to go anytime.
Okay, I call the meeting of the Grand Marais Planning and Zoning Committee, August 5th, to order. We have a roll call. We have three. No? Okay, Stacy.
Mike McHugh,
Yeah.
Here.
And we need one more, right?
That's you, Hal. We're good.
Okay. All right, then we adopt the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda that was sent out? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept it.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Stacy.
Yep,
and I will second.
good. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Raise hands.
Aye.
Yep. The minutes of the last meeting, are there any additions or deletions or additions to it?
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes.
Thank you.
And I will second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried. Now we're going to get into the public hearings. There isn't any, is there? Okay. And the new business, now we're going to call on Marais to explain what she's requesting for the Cedar Grove Park.
Thank you, Hal, and thank you, Commission, for having us at your meeting today. I believe in your meeting packet, you received the memo that I wrote that describes this project. The EDA has accepted an offer on the purchase of a lot from North Point Incorporated. I don't have the lot and block number in front of me, but it's the one in the middle facing the Gunflint Trail.
I believe it's lot 3, block 4.
Thank you. And we believed that it was appropriate because in the covenants for Cedar Grove, it states that childcare centers are allowed. North Point Incorporated is wanting to establish a youth center serving young people in grades 7 through 12 as an alternative to the systems that are already in place, a new way of making kids comfortable, feeling appreciated and feeling loved and having a place to be. Brad Shannon is here. He is the executive director of the nonprofit, the leader of the project, and he can answer any questions that you might have. What we're asking you to do is amend the zoning because the zoning and the covenants don't read the same. And so the covenants allow for this project, but the zoning does not. I think that's my summary. Mike, do you have anything else to add?
I do a couple things. So first of all, this is something that would fall under what we call services in our zoning definitions of uses. And a simple fix would be to just add services as something that's an allowed use in the BDA. Simple in terms of the number of words involved, but the process takes a little bit of time. We would have to schedule a public hearing, which we'd hold at your next meeting, look at that draft ordinance. You'd have to make some findings and then pass your recommendation on to the city council. So if you're interested in going down that path, then we can pick this up again next month with a draft ordinance that would make this use clearly legal in the BDA.
I think it's a great idea. It's something that has been needed up here to take a lot of young children and mentor them. I believe that's part of what we're talking about. I'm all for it. I'm an EDA commissioner, so I'll have to abstain voting on it. But I think it's a great idea.
I have a question. So you said it was North Point Incorporated purchasing this. Is there any intention of this at some point becoming a 501c3?
We're in process of that happening. So we've been incorporated since last November. The 1023 is probably in the mail as we speak. I've had it. So yes, we are in the process of we are a 501c3, but there's a couple different pieces of that. So yes.
So that means that there will be no future property taxes assessed on this property, correct?
That is correct.
And what is the purchase price of this property?
$25,000.
But there's still a over $10,000 assessment. Is that paid on top of that 25, or is that included in the 25?
That is included. In my understanding in the agreement is that is covered in the purchase price.
Yeah, when we sell a lot, Stacy, we pay off the balance due on the special assessments on every lot that we sell.
Okay, so I'm gonna just express my concern. I like you, Brad. I think it's a great idea. I recognize that you're having the same problem that a lot of us have had trying to purchase property on the private market here. Get that. I am concerned that we're using government land, and we have an extreme problem here with housing. So we're gonna take more land off of the tax rolls. We just had 3 businesses downtown be abated, $10,000 to $15,000. I don't have that number in front of me right now, and now we're going to take more land off the tax rolls. We need housing. If we're going to amend the zoning ordinance for the EDA, I think we better put a workforce housing ordinance in there, or somehow part of that. We need to figure out how to do this, because our businesses cannot survive. I went on Boreal today to look at how many businesses were looking for employees. It's just unbelievable. We have businesses that can't be open 7 days a week because they don't have enough employees. This is getting scary. So I love the project. I think it's a great idea. I just have real concerns that we're not thinking long-term of what we really need.
Well, I'm going to make a comment to that. It's not a bad comment at all, but I want to tell you something, that the housing that the EDA and Howard Hedstrom and Marais have done, we have increased the tax base, and I'm getting the assessor to get a figure for me, but it's increased substantially.
But not for workforce housing. Our tax base, yeah, we've increased things, but the number of people that are buying homes here, living here, working people, can't afford to live here anymore. The house across the street from me, great people, but they have no intentions of using that house for year-round housing. We have to do something. So I think we should use some of the EDA lots, work with Hamilton Housing, or Habitat now, I guess it is. We need to figure this out.
Well, I don't know if this is getting into a political motion here, but I'm kind of disturbed by it, because I think this application has a lot of meaningful to it. And I will go back to my statement that we have increased the tax base in Cook County this year quite substantially. Now, when you talk about workforce housing, yes, we need workforce housing, but right now we can, with the Trump administration restrictions on getting people up here. We're having a hard time, as Mary knows, getting employees up here. Foreign students are practically disappeared. And that is a problem, but I don't think that should be penalizing this poor gentleman that's got a good service.
Well, just to clarify to the Planning Commission, you're not being asked to make any decisions tonight. The EDA is requesting a zoning amendment, and there will be a public hearing scheduled for it at your next meeting. So this is more of an informational meeting, and you've got time to think about it, and we'll be posting notice of it that other folks can comment on it as well. And at your next meeting, we can dig in a little more detail about the specifics of their request.
Good idea, Mike. I'm all for it.
And that is the policy or the plan that we do follow. Is that true, Mike? Is there other, that's what has to happen before we can make any decisions?
That's right. We're talking about amending the zoning ordinance. It requires a public hearing, that requires a time of notice that we don't have to make this meeting, so it'll be at your next meeting. And you'll make a recommendation that'll be sent to the city council.
Thank you, Mike. If there's no other questions about that, we'll take up the issue at our next meeting.
Hey, I appreciate that. My silence is not disinterest. I wish I could solve the workforce housing issue. I mean, I would concur that that is a significant issue. And I guess I just wanted to, my 2 cents is that I'm grateful for your guys' consideration of this particular project. So respect your work.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the old business, and that's the proposed amendments to the plan. So I'll turn that over to you.
If I can ask before you go on, Brad, I think if you want to leave,
Yeah.
the topic is finished.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Appreciate your
I
time.
might stay on and listen to this, but okay.
Okay. Take care.
Okay, we want to get into the proposed amendments?
Sure. So at your last meeting, you conducted a hearing really at the end of a lengthy process and passed a recommendation on to the city council. And I'm just here to provide you with an update. The city council at their next meeting, which was only a week later, took up the issue, had a brief conversation about some of the language in the ordinance, but really was more concerned about the lack of response from the public and wanted to reschedule their consideration for their August meeting, which is next Wednesday. In the meantime, we've generated some public comments on the issue, which is good. But I'm wondering if the Planning Commission itself also wants to be a part of that commenting process and perhaps either submit comments or participate directly in the meeting next week and talk to the city council about why you were willing to why you like this ordinance and were willing to pass it. Because it seems like they could use the support.
Well, I think that someone from the planning and zoning should be there, and definitely our consultants should be there. And we should be at least allowed to answer some questions that people might have. I would be willing to, if Kennedy can't make it, I would be willing to do that.
Well, I know Tim is planning on being there. He was there last time too. But I do think the council would appreciate hearing directly from you as commissioners as well about what it is that you saw on this ordinance and why you wanted to support it.
I would be happy to submit some kind of a statement. I cannot be there personally. It's one of my last shifts that day and then I'm done, but I can't be there in person, but I'd be happy to follow the path and submit my own personal reasoning of support.
That would be nice. That would be nice. You just write us a memo of that what you just said, and we'll present it at the hearing. But we have to be somewhat unified on this. We went through and we adopted it. We put a lot of time into it. And Mike, what is the main objection? Is that the lot size?
There isn't an objection that they shared with the policy. They had some questions about the language related to setbacks. And remember the front yard setback, sort of at the end of the process, we talked about some sort of averaging. And when Jeff wrote that language up for us, he included both a minimum and a maximum setback. And I don't think they liked the idea of there being a maximum setback. So that's an easy fix. We didn't have a chance to dig into some of the more substantive parts of the ordinance with the council, though, I think because they were concerned about whether or not they had received enough comments to carry forth.
Mike,
Go ahead.
Who did comment from, the few comments, what did you hear from the public about these changes?
Well, they are across the board. Some concerns about potential changes to the character of the community, some support for the idea of being able to build more housing. I don't think there was a lot of comments that kind of dug into the details of the ordinance, which is no surprise. And that's really the challenge I think that we're faced is this is a big document with a lot of information. And firsthand the challenge of even digging through and understanding all those changes. And I don't know how realistic it is to expect folks to be able to do that or be interested in doing that. So that's what we're trying to get is, all right, how do we help people get through that process and provide some comments to the council so that they feel assured that the community was involved in the conversation.
What date, Mike, is that meeting at the council?
It's next Wednesday. That's
what day is that?
12th of August.
Okay, I will commit to be there. Or are they going to do it on Zoom or?
Yep, it'll be just like this.
I will be glad to, if Tim Kennedy can't, I would be glad to do that.
I'll be there for sure.
Good.
And can I send you an email, Mike Roth, or who do I address it to?
Yep, you can send it to Patrick or I or both of us. We'll make sure it gets into the meeting packet for the council.
I'll send it to PK.
It's nice of you to do that, and that's important. Stacy, are you going to be able to attend that meeting?
I will definitely write a letter. I'm not sure if I can attend the meeting yet. I will try to figure that out in the next few days and I would do both then.
Okay. Well, are there any other comments to this meeting? Or that's the only issue that we had left, at least on the agenda. But if there's anything anybody else wants to talk about or bring up, it's okay with me.
I was just going to say, if anyone is watching, I just put the email address up on the chat, so I think that'll pop up on the screen. It's housingplan@grandmarais.city. So if anyone else has comments, they can send them there.
I can fully understand with the pages. I've got the pages here, and there's quite a few things to go through. So if anybody's got any concern about something, I think we'd be receptive to listening to it. But our objective was to try to get more lower income, moderate housing. And what we've done here, in my opinion, is going to attract that. In my tenure, I've improved 4 lots in the city and reducing the size of them because the cost of them was lower and the maintenance and all that. So it is a viable solution to attract, and people are, oddly enough, the people are inquiring into realtors up here about buying property up here. One of the reasons may be that the low rate of COVID illnesses are here and people are swarming to it. But right now the town is crowded, and it's crowded. The BWCA people are up here, and it kind of worries me a little bit, but That's just what it is. But the housing property, the house right across the street from me, who the new manager from the enforcement division of the Border Patrol was here, and then he got called away. And I think it sold in less than 4 days. So there is, according to the realtors I've been discussing this with, there is a lot of interest in people coming up here to Cook County. One safeguard is it's never going to change that much because almost 93% of this county is state and federally owned. And that's why we have the in lieu of taxes to cover the expenses of the lands in the BWCA. And we went through a battle, and Howard Hedstrom and I worked on it with the Forestry Service, and we made them order a new appraisal. And I think that's going to turn around a $700,000 loss into a gain of around $400,000 or $500,000. And we've got to be aware of a lot of things that are going on here. And this is going to be a tough year for the county. The county does have a very substantial reserves, Stacy. It's almost $10 million. And there have been some responsible commissioners that have gone back to the Carol Russick idea. And I think I had a little bit to do with that. For many years, John Lundell and I were the fiscal review officers to review every item on the county budget. And we did it for many years. It took up a lot of time, and we didn't get paid one dime. We didn't want it. But we are going to have to do a lot of things up here. And because we're dependent on tourism, and for years I've tried to get a forestry college up here, and when David Dill was still alive, we were getting someplace with it. And I'd sure like to revise something like that, to have a college up here. And there is no forestry college. It's all doled out to other colleges. So there is a definite need by the forestry to recreate something. But that's some of the things we have to do. And we do have a pretty strong tax base. And I think the Rockefeller woman is building a huge property up on Harry Drabeck's old property. And there are some other people that I'm aware of, executives, that are going to retire and come up here. They're looking for land on Lake Superior. So that's the bright side of it. This tough side of it is that I'm concerned about the tax base because, as Stacy said, we got some businesses that are going to have a tough time. Number one, we can't even find employees. And number two, it's going to be a lot of shutdowns. So sorry about speaking up about it, but there are a lot of things we're going to have to do, and it's not going to be easy.
So that's my suggestion is we have EDA lots that haven't sold. They've been on the market for many, many years. Can we take a look at using some of those to work with Hamilton Habitat to put some workforce housing in there? It would be better to start that than leave those empty or to turn them over and sell them to nonprofits and not get any tax dollars from them.
Some of the money that we used to build the infrastructure had some strings attached that when we've explored rezoning it to residential in the past, that hasn't been allowed. So
and where did those strings come from?
The IRRB and state deed gave us money, and both of the programs that money came from were for business parks infrastructure. So we have we've asked the questions in the past of, we need housing and this infrastructure is here. Can we use it that way? And the answer's been no. And I assume it still would be. We can revisit that question if we want to, but I don't think that Yeah, I don't think it's going
Well, we don't have that
to be.
many.
Yes,
We got the
so.
Baptist church there, all right. And we've got a veterinarian that's really, we've bent over backwards. And I worked with the Coney County Loan Fund to make that happen. And he's exceptional. He even takes out calls and does things like that. And Pete Gressick's got a big operation up there that's needed, and they're paying taxes along with the electric company. We don't have that many non-taxable things. We got one coming up with the historical society, but that's it. There's the Baptist church is the biggest one, but you know what? When we took the Baptist church and put them up there, we rebuilt the higher ed building, which was the old Baptist church, and it was very successful. So that worked out a plus for us because we're innovating and doing things. And housing is the issue. And the issue is affordability. And that's why we did this ordinance search. And Marais and the EDA have worked very hard on this issue and accomplished some things. So it's not all negative, and there's a very small amount of tax exempt properties in the Cedar Grove Park in comparison to the other buildings there. I don't want to argue about it, but I want to be sure we look at the facts. And I just think that this young fellow that's asking us to help him with this is a darn good idea. Does anyone?
Well, we know we've got a lot of work to do when it comes to housing.
Yeah.
Thanks for your willingness to help continue the process of evaluating the ordinance at the council level. The only other thing I'll say about it is we do have a little bit of time left budgeted with Jeff. He'll be involved next week as well, but there could be some follow-up steps that we want to use him for. So I guess we'll have to wait and see how long it takes to get this done before we know how many resources we have left with him. But we did talk about a couple of issues during the ordinance evaluation, like looking at the mixed use and RCN zones and wondering if there shouldn't be the same, and the shift from R2 to R1, which you've got in there, and maybe there's some other issues as well where we want him to help us look at some more housing issues. So well, that'll be still, I think, right at the top of the list for the Planning Commission to keep talking about housing.
Well, I'm not surprised that people want to look at it. It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff in here. It takes quite a while to go right through it, but I would be very open to listening to any legitimate complaints about any issue, because we are a public body and we have to listen to people.
So Mike, just to clarify, basically the council was most concerned with not having gotten enough response. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think that's it precisely.
Well, I think that's because of the COVID problem. In the past issues, we've had that room filled with standing people on certain things we were doing. I go back to the store on the hill here, and I was involved in that, and they all came out, and it was helpful. It wasn't negative. There's nothing wrong with public input in most cases, not all. Okay, if there's no other business to come before this body, I will entertain a motion for approval.
I will take the motion to adjourn.
Okay. Is there a second?
I guess that'll be me.
Good. Any further discussion? If not, we're adjourned, and I will be at the meeting on the 11th or here, and
The 12th.
and try to 12th. I'll be there. Maybe Kennedy will too. I don't know. I hope so.
Yep, he will.